for people to hide. They don't actually grapple with the right issue, because what they do is they say, well, attribute, 1 says this, and then someone else in the room says, well, attribute 11 says the opposite, and then they just argue. I find that by reducing the number of attributes, you want to create separation in the prioritization, not, in a sense, the ability for people to just keep arguing, and keep arguing. We've already talked about the attributes and their weights can change. Oh, go ahead, Carlton.
Do you find when there are too many attributes is when when people are having too many items, they're trying to prioritize? So they're instead of just looking at the mushy middle, they're trying to take the things at the top and the things at the bottom, and they're like, well, we need an attribute for this, and we need an attribute for that. I mean, does that happen if you're trying to prioritize too much?
A little bit. I mean, yeah. There was an earlier question, and I don't have the name handy, about someone who said, what happens for the backlog items that just keep putting at the bottom and the backlog keeps growing. And the woman in the webinar, she said that the backlog had hundreds of items, right? And so what I find is that if the backlog is too big, there's kind of two root causes. The first is if the backlog is too big, people don't have a good roadmap, because the roadmap is the first level of prioritization, not the backlog. And the second thing I find is that if the backlog is too long, it's because they have older items. And this is pretty radical, but I recommend freshness dating backlog items. And in general, I go through my backlog every quarter, and I just flat out delete most of the items that are older than a year. Now, sometimes I'll keep a backlog item that is kind of like this lingering idea that was out of the blue and kind of cool. But most of the time, if a backlog item is older than a year, I just delete it. Because if it was that important, it should have been done. I mean, if it was important, it should have been done. If it wasn't that important and I keep deferring it, then it's just not important. And so I think that backlogs more than 100 items need to be examined, and certainly really large backlogs need to be decomposed through other techniques or managed through other techniques.
Kind of like wedding cake. If it's more than a year old in your freezer, get rid of it.
Yeah, I can agree with that one. Now, the other one that I want to let people know is that as a product owner, I remember that I developed this technique a long time ago when I was consulting at Qualcomm. I had a leader who really wanted to be involved, and he would come in and he would take like this one backlog item and say, you need to move this up. And what we had to do was we had to train him that backlog items actually kind of clump or chunk or cluster. And the purpose of having these weightings is if the business priority changes, let's go back to the strategic alignment of global, mobile, and social. And let's say that the product owner said that global was the highest weighted item, and his boss or her boss comes in and the boss says, no, the corporate priority has really changed. We really want to make social much more important than global. Change the weighting. What we would expect is not one backlog item to move, but a clump of backlog items to move. And it's the clumpiness that I think is a quality that you should see in a well-prioritized backlog. If you're not seeing things move in clumps or clusters, then your backlog isn't prioritized well. There's one other question that Pablo said, what about multi-year projects? And Pablo, I'm going to say once again, if you have a multi-year project, you need a roadmap that spans the time horizon where you have a perspective of the future, but not a commitment to the future. The commitment comes in the sprint. And the backlog is how we move from an intention to a commitment from the roadmap. Tom asked a question. I don't know if we'll get to it, but let's get to a summary, and then maybe we can pick off a few more questions in the questions tab.
Okay.
The summary for everyone on the line is prioritization does exist at all levels of Agile. And part of what Scrum Masters do is they help organizations find the attributes that work for the organization. So finding the attributes, I think, is one of those things in the Scrum, the Scrum Guide points out that the Scrum Master will help the product owner, and I think that this is an area where the Scrum Masters can really help. Now, once you have those attributes, apply them consistently, and then look at what the results are. And just like you reflect on the development process in a retrospective, we want you to reflect on those attributes and see if those attributes are working, if the weights are working, and if the attributes or the weights need to change. So let's look at the questions in the chat log. Carlton, I'll let you scroll down and pick any question that you want to ask. We've got 5 minutes, so we should probably get 2 or 3 questions in.
All right. Let's see. Let me think about here. What role should a product owner play in the roadmap definition?
Well, take it, man.
I'll start that one. Yeah, I'll start on that one. Yeah. So I'll roll with it. Let me go. So for me, I think the product owner is absolutely involved in the inception, creation, maintenance of the roadmap definition. I mean, the product owner, when we think about in a Scrum context, I mean, they own all aspects of the product. So roadmap is something that they're going to own. I really think that when product owners aren't involved in the roadmap definition, that can cause a lot of problems communicating the goals and objectives to the team. Now, in really large organizations where I've worked with, sometimes product owners are not really the people that are the owners of the roadmap, and that's okay, right? I like to describe to the product owners, you should be a player, right? You should be at the table, literally at the table where people are discussing the roadmap. And the idea is, as a product owner, you have your ideas and thoughts about what should be in the roadmap, what are the priorities. And sometimes you'll win some, sometimes you won't. But if, on average, 50% of the time, the ideas of the product owner are represented in the product roadmap, you're winning, right? I think that's in really large organizations, like these big giant product companies you see in Silicon Valley, right? Product owners are participating in that process. How do you see it, Luke?
Well, I don't have any real difference in what you just said. I think that for me, the prime determinant of that answer is, in terms of what you said, maybe not the prime determinant, but the prime modifier is scale and size, and that is how big a company is determines, the degree of work that a product owner is going to do versus the degree of support a product owner gets. So in small companies, we tend to do a lot of the work on our own. In bigger companies, product owners are supported through market research or marketing departments and other people who can really, really help. Now, guys, I forgot that I have one more important poll question, which is, what do you want for the February 2018 webinar? So please let us know. We'd like to let the community pick the webinar, and I want to single out Bill Day, who is a CSM from CHI Health, and he actually emailed me a February 2018 webinar suggestion. Bill, I'm going to make sure that your suggestion goes into a future poll, but please keep sending us and emailing us your suggestions for webinars. This is a service to the community, and we want the community to be, as much as possible, picking the webinars that reflect the dynamic and ongoing interests and needs of the community. Love what you guys are sending us, and we're really excited to keep this webinar going. Let's look at the results before we close the poll and kind of see where people stand. Oh, we have an emerging winner with a few hundred. Let's see if the poll either supports it or changes it. But I love the dynamic changing here, and we've got ready, and done coming in strong.
Yeah, I see that.
Now, while this poll finishes up, I want to let everyone know that we wish you a very happy holiday season. I was just getting back a few weeks ago from in New Zealand, where I was keynoting at the Agile New Zealand conference. And, of course, I live in the Northern Hemisphere, where we have, in a sense, cold activities that celebrate the holiday. And, of course, they were talking about how they love to have their Christmas barbecue, which I thought was really kind of different for where I grew up, where it snowed. But we wish everyone on the webinar, and to my friends at the Scrum Alliance, Alyssa and Jack, we wish everyone a very happy holiday season and a very prosperous new year. We look forward to a full year of collaboration at scale webinars. We thank everyone for their thoughtful questions, and I think we have a winner, Jack, for ready, and done.
I love it. Looking at 18%, so we're looking at that for the February webinar, and definitely, Luke, very happy holidays to you as well. Thank you for another excellent year of collaboration at scale webinars, and we're going to keep continuing this in 2018. So everyone, please look an eye out for your emails, and then follow us on social media for updates for the webinars. As far as the questions go, we will provide all these questions within the document and get those out within the following weeks. Again, I want to thank Carlton and Luke for taking their time out today for an excellent webinar. We got a lot of really good feedback, and the webinar has been recorded, so we will get a copy of the transcript out, as well as the recording and slide deck within the next 1 to 2 business days. Carlton, Luke, any final thoughts?
No, nothing here. Thank you very much. Really appreciate the opportunity. It was very fun, so thanks for the invite.
My pleasure. And we'll also post the January 2018 Collaboration at Scale webinar on managing technical architectures within the following week. So thanks again, everybody. Have a great rest of the day, and happy holidays.
Yes, and one final thing. Sean Adams asked